It doesn't get much more British than Morecambe and Wise. The pair, Morecambe and Ernie Wise, started as a song and dance comedic team, with Morecambe playing the more bumbling comic role and Wise the affable straight man. Over time, however, the nature of the act changed, and by the 1960s their characters were much more complex, crafted, and honed. Today, the classic, The Morecambe and Wise Christmas Show, hits screens on BBC Two, followed by Morecambe and Wise, in their own words, and the music of Morecambe and Wise. Each installment will undoubtedly take many back to the halcyon days of British comedy, though things could have been completely different should Morecambe and Wise have quit while they were ahead after a rejection by the BBC early on. Morecambe and Wise's partnership lasted from 1941 until the former died in 1984. Wise would sadly die just 15 years later in 1999. Friends for 44 years, partners for most of it, many described them as two halves of a whole. While the pair were inseparable, unearthed reports show that some attempts were made to split him up, with the BBC, before their success, unimpressed after reading a script. They preferred the idea of Morecambe ditching him and going solo as a comic, as was explored during ITV series The Lost Tapes. A letter to a scriptwriter dated June 5, 1959, written by one of the BBC's comedy producers, John Ammons, laid bare the broadcaster's concerns. He wrote, after seeing Morecambe and Wise the other week in their show, in Blackpool, I am not at all sure as to their strength on a TV programme. They are still working on old gags and, in my opinion, frequently working the wrong type of material. They are quite a disappointment to me because when I first worked with them in this region on sound, I thought they had a great future. He continued, it is even more depressing than it seems because they are quite happy to jog along as they are doing at the moment. I always thought Morecambe was a funny man and still think that he could be very successful on Vision, but only if he could be detached from Ernie, who I think is a big weakness. I really cannot see them making the grade in a TV series. The pair's partnership began during World War II when they started performing in 1941 and gained much success on stage and radio. Wanting to branch out, their first foray into TV fell flat on its face and, appearing in the 1954 BBC show Running Wild, their performance was widely criticised, with one reviewer concluding that the TV set was the box they buried Morecambe and Wise in. The two considered cutting their losses, and Frank Pope, their agent, even wrote to the head of light entertainment at the broadcasters, criticising Running Wild himself. I called my clients into my office to see me this morning in view of the television broadcast they did last night and to say in my personal opinion this was the worst performance I have ever witnessed my clients giving, not because of their inability but plainly because the material etc. supplied for them to appear in was most unsuitable and inadequate, he wrote. On behalf of my clients, I must refuse them being allowed to appear for the last of the 6 television broadcasts in their contract. You will appreciate, my client's main livelihood depends upon theatrical engagements and they cannot possibly afford to jeopardize any further their reputation in this market. After this initial obstacle the pair kept control over their material and in 1956 were offered a spot in the Winifred Atwell show with material written by Johnny Speight, and so exploded the fame and success of Morecambe and Wise. Shows on Morecambe and Wise will air on BBC Two from 5:55 p.m.